There is, so why do I do these talks? And some of you have heard me go through this before, but for the people who've never been here before, I'm going to go through it again. So, number one is there's a British nobleman, I can't remember his name, who said an educated, healthy population is harder to govern. Okay? So, that's one of the things I'm trying to help you with. Is,
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, harder to get.
And I'm a little rebellious too, so that would probably help.
Yeah, okay. Or we could use the term manipulate, okay? Yeah. So let me ask you a question. During COVID, was there some manipulation going on? Would anybody agree with that?
Every day, 2 years of it.
Even with my own family.
Yeah, a lot of it, okay? We won't get into all the politics of that. I don't want to do that. Yeah, there's a lot of it going on. And so, do you feel like during COVID, if you had just a basic knowledge of immunity and some other things that may have helped you understand what was going on about your immune system and yeah, okay. And so that's one of the reasons I do these talks, because I want to educate people, I want to educate our community so they think a lot deeper about their health, okay? So when they go to their physician, if you go to a physician, you can ask them deeper questions, think more logically about how your body works. So that's one of the major reasons I do these talks. Another reason is I want you to think more about your health than just about pain, okay? I want you to think about your health in terms of being more healthy and pursuing health rather than just getting out of pain. Now, nobody likes to be in pain. I don't like to be in pain. I rarely am, but if I do, I don't like it, you know? So I understand wanting to get you out of pain. I understand not wanting to have pain. But health is more than that. It's about attaining a body that works in the highest level that it can, okay, for where you're at in life. So today we're going to talk about autoimmune disease. Would you say, how many of you grew up in the 60s and 70s? Anybody there? Somebody? Yeah, I did, you know. Yeah. How much did we hear about autoimmune disease back then? You never heard about it, okay? Were there people that had autoimmune disease back then?
Oh,
yeah.
I just didn't have a name for it yet.
I mean, yeah, I remember this girl in college, when I was in college in the 70s, who, I mean, looking back, she had this terrible skin, great lady, but just terrible skin. And looking back, I'm thinking, this person probably had gluten sensitivity and nobody recognized it there. Nobody knew anything about it, okay? And so autoimmunity's been around for a while. I think it's getting way worse over time, way worse, as we're going to talk about tonight. So what I want to show you is how it works, how some of the theories, and these theories are all pretty good, and then how you can go about doing some simple things to tamp that down in your life. So I'm sure everybody's had time to read this by now, so I'm not going to go through that. So let's talk about the immune system first and how it works. You have two parts of your immune system that are really important. Number one is the primary or innate immune system. This is like the 800-pound gorilla of your immune system, okay? This includes your epithelial barriers, which is the lining of your lungs, your bronchial tubes, your small intestine, mucous membranes, your white bloods, different kinds of white blood cells, phagocytes, natural killer cells. So this is the primary part of your immune system. If this isn't intact, you'll never be healthy, okay? Never, okay? What causes that to be strong? What causes your primary immune system to work well? Who knows? Anybody have any ideas?
Eating well.
Okay.
Taking care of yourself.
Yeah, eating well. Eating well. Like eating what? Like Twinkies?
No. Vegetables,
okay.
Good.
Healthy grains. Okay, right. Yeah, good. Okay. So eating well. So what does eating well have to do with keeping that healthy?
because your brain, if you are treating your body well, your brain can do its proper functions and control the systems well. When it doesn't get what it needs, it starts to break things down.
Yeah, that's a true statement. I would go probably maybe a little deeper than that. That's good. I mean, yeah, it's really good. So what else do you need to keep that healthy?
Sleep.
Okay, you need sleep. Okay.
Nutrients.
Yeah, there we go. I should have a coffee card to give you.
So I was going too basic.
Nutrients, yeah. So you need nutrients, right. So can you tell me some nutrients that might be important for your immune system? Vitamin D, that's right. Vitamin C.
Zinc.
Zinc.
Vitamin A.
Vitamin A.
Echinacea.
Multivitamin.
Well, echinacea is an herb. It's a good one, but that's not I wouldn't say that's an essential nutrient. What'd you say?
A great multivitamin that's balanced with the right nutrients.
Yeah, that's whole food that your body can actually absorb. So zinc, magnesium, you said them all. Vitamin D, vitamin A, vitamin C. Those are really, really important. If you don't have those, that doesn't work, okay? So all of these people that got COVID and died, how well do you think that was working? Not very well, okay? Not well at all, okay? So you've heard me go into all the things that keep it from working, like a high sugar diet and things like that. But yeah, not very well. So that's what you need to keep that healthy, is you need the right nutrients. I'm going to show you some studies on that in just a minute. So the secondary part of your immune system is your acquired immune system. This is a part of your immune system that works when you get like chicken pox when you're little, like I got. Chicken pox, mumps, and measles, the big three, okay? Those are the ones you want to get because your body makes antibodies to those and it remembers that, and you don't get them again, okay? And so even during COVID, people develop antibodies to COVID, okay? And you get an antibody test and they'll show you that, okay? This is good, but it's not nearly as important as this, because this, the primary innate part of your immune system, keeps you from getting the disease in the first place. So did everybody out there get COVID? Every human being? No. There's some people that didn't get it. Okay. Yeah, you didn't get it. Good. So your immune system's probably working pretty decent. Okay. Hopefully it is.
I came across some stuff before even things came out, and I was already taking them when I heard about them, like Quercetin and all of that. I was already doing that for something else that I saw, and I was already on it.
So good for you. So it helped you during COVID.
It did.
Yeah.
I didn't stress out as much either because I knew I was doing the right thing.
Yeah, that's good. So taking the right things, getting the right nutrients is going to help that a lot. Now, what is autoimmunity? Okay, it's one of 80 types of disorders where your body cannot tell the difference between the disease and the body, so it starts attacking the body. We'll go into why and how that works in just a minute. It's an estimated that 28 million Americans suffer from classic autoimmunes. I think that figure is maybe a little old, probably higher than that now. There's a lot of people out there that have autoimmune disease. So here's some examples of autoimmune disease. Thyroid problems, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, multiple sclerosis. There's a lot of them, and we don't have to go into all of them, but here's an example of some.
Several people that have fibromyalgia.
Yeah. I don't know that fibromyalgia is so much an autoimmune disease. I'm going to do a whole talk on that.
Okay.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks. I don't know how many weeks.
I don't know. It's up there.
Yeah, it's up there, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
It's
It's up there somewhere.
I don't remember
seeing that.
Yeah, so we'll do. I'm going to do an entire half-hour talk on that. So what are some of the signs? Now, there's more signs than just this, but here's 10 signs. This chronic joint and muscle pain that never, ever, ever goes away, okay? Now, you can have joint and muscle pain and weakness with chiropractic issues, okay? So that isn't always an autoimmune disease. But, you start developing tremors, that can be the sign of an autoimmune disease. So let me ask you this. This is a really good question, pretty hard question. But what kind of a problem, autoimmune issue could cause tremor? What issue that you can think of? This is a hard question, and if you've been to a lot of my talks, you could put kind of 2 and 2 together and figure this out. What would that be?
Say the question again.
What kind of problem in your body, or something that you could consume, or something that would happen in your body that would cause tremor?
Sugar.
Okay. I know that's always the right answer, but that isn't the right answer this time. Okay. It's not sugar.
Nice try.
Parkinson's kind
Good
of
try.
tremor?
Okay.
Okay, Parkinson's is a named disease for a set of symptoms, but I'm talking, what is a problem in the body that could possibly cause tremor over time? Anybody know?
Pinched nerve.
Pinched nerve could do it. That wasn't what I was thinking of. But you're thinking along the lines of chiropractic, so you should probably get another card. Okay.
You should tune in.
Okay. So I'll just tell you, gluten sensitivity. Gluten can attack a part of the brain and can cause gluten ataxia, which can cause tremor. Okay. So no extra charge for that. Okay. Weight loss, insomnia, heat intolerance, recurring rashes, hives, sensitivity. Obviously, the butterfly rash is a problem with lupus. Difficulty concentrating or focusing could be, developing an autoimmunity in the brain, and lots of people have that. Just constant fatigue would be, more of a thyroid issue. Weight gain, cold intolerance, thyroid. Hair loss or white patches on your skin. Abdominal pain, blood in your stool, diarrhea. Now we're talking about, Crohn's disorder, which is gluten,
What is? That's what it is.
dry eyes, mouth or skin, numbness or tingling in hands or feet. That could be a chiropractic issue, but it could also be a autoimmune issue of the central nervous system. Multiple miscarriages or blood clots. So these are some of the signs. These aren't all of them. So let's look at the biological issues, the views that relate to what causes autoimmune issues. And this is all based on research. So here's the first view, the nutrient deficiency view of autoimmune disease. So one is vitamin D deficiency. Now, this is out of a journal. There's increasing epidemiologic evidence linking vitamin D deficiency and autoimmune disease, including MS, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, and lupus. Okay, vitamin D deficiency is prevalent in autoimmune disease. Vitamin D is critically important for a functional immune system, and there's a profound deficiency observed in autoimmune disease. This comes from the Journal of Investigative Medicine, August 2010. So way before COVID. Okay? So here's one, relationships between vitamin D, gut microbiome, and systemic autoimmunity. That's in the Journal of Frontiers of Immunology. This is 2020, not too long ago, 3 years ago. Okay? 2.5 years ago. And here's part of the abstract of that. There's increasing recognition of the role the microbiome plays in states of health and disease. Microbiome studies in systemic autoimmune diseases demonstrate unique microbial patterns in inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and systemic lupus erythematosus to a lesser extent, where there is no single bug or pattern that characterizes MS. Autoimmune diseases tend to share a predisposition for vitamin D deficiencies, which alters the microbiome and integrity of the gut epithelial barrier. So how do you find out whether you have enough vitamin D or not?
Blood test.
Simple blood test. That's all it is. And 20 years ago, nobody was testing. Not many people were testing vitamin D. Now it's just common. Everybody tested. I mean, I think I've seen billboards where Brian is giving all these tests where you just walk in and get them. one of them is vitamin D. Okay.
Wasn't it true that the majority of people are lacking vitamin D?
When I test people, I would say that about 30%. That's about what I find. I also find some people that have way too much vitamin D, and they just need to back off. They've got too much, and they're overloaded. Not everybody. I don't find as many people like that as I do deficient. Okay, here's one. This is, again, in Frontiers of Immunology, immunomodulatory effects of diet and nutrients in lupus, systemic review. Okay, here's what this study said. Based on the currently published literature, is observed a low-calorie, low-protein diet with a high contents of fiber, polyunsaturated fatty acids, which would be like omega-3, vitamins, minerals, and polyphenols, contains sufficient potential macronutrients and micronutrients to regulate the activity of the overall disease by modulating the inflammation and immune functions of lupus. Okay, so what this study says is that, people with lupus may be eating too much, for one thing. You need a lower calorie diet. You need a nutrient-dense, lower calorie diet. Here's another article. Vitamin D and marine omega-3 fatty acid supplement and the incident autoimmune disease. Okay, this is out of British Medical Journal, 2022, pretty recent. Okay, so conclusions in this journal. Vitamin D supplementation for 5 years, with or without omega-3 fatty acids, reduced autoimmune disease by 22%. While omega-3 fatty acid supplementation, with or without vitamin D, reduced the autoimmune disease rate by 15%. So both treatment arms showed larger effects than the reference in the control arm. So what this is saying, if you just take omega-3 fatty acids or eat fatty fish and take vitamin D, make sure your vitamin D levels are high, you can reduce your chances of autoimmune disease substantially. It's in British Medical Journal, one of the top journals in the world, okay? So, view number 2. Autoimmunity happens when the body is overwhelmed with toxicity and pollutants. In 2005, researchers, they looked at the cord blood of newborn infants from around the country and found that 287 chemicals in their cord blood. Okay. Now, I have a whole bunch of stuff here, and if after this talk you want these slides, I'll email them to you. You can have them, okay? But this is all the things we're exposed to and what it can do in terms of your immune system. So I'm not going to go through all of this. But like Teflon, remember when Teflon came out? We found out it scraped off in your food. Nobody thought anything about it. Bad for your immune system, okay? Really bad. All right? Dioxin, found in bleach, like those white coffee filters. You shouldn't use those because they're made with dioxin, okay? Not good. So bisphenol A and phthalates, plasticizers, very, very, they're potent endocrine disruptors. And I talked a lot about that in my talk on just toxicity. Hair dye. Women who use hair dye have 3 times the risk for developing lupus, okay? That's not good news for most women, okay? Listen, I'm just the messenger, okay? Yes?
I was just reading something online about phthalates and how those are used a lot of times in washing, clothes washing detergents and things, and that it absorbs through your clothes then into your skin, and that and you can tell me whether this sounds feasible or not, but that it increased both the number of fat cells in your body as well as the size of the fat cells, so that no matter what diets you would try to use, if you had too many phthalates, that it would really just make your diet just not work at all.
Phthalates they act like estrogen in the body. And estrogen is a cell growth stimulator.
Wow.
So what you're saying is true. There's some truth to that. Yeah, I believe that, Paul. I believe it. So we can't get away from these. So we just got to try and reduce it in our diet. Okay. So here's one, the role of environmental estrogens in autoimmunity, okay? This is in the journal Autoimmune Review. It says the prevalence, let's see, this is 2012. The prevalence of autoimmune disease has significantly increased over the recent years. It has been proposed that this epidemiological evidence could be in part attributable to environmental estrogens or compounds that display estrogen-like activity and are ubiquitously present in the environment. Environmental estrogens can be found in a wide variety of foods, phytoestrogens in plants, such as clover and soy, while mycoestrogens are food contaminants produced by fungi. Meat, eggs, and dairy products from animals given exogenous hormones contain relatively high concentration of estrogen. So that just sort of speaks for itself. Here's another one, the potential link between environmental triggers and autoimmunity. Same thing, okay? I won't read the abstract there. It's the same thing. They're saying the things that we're exposed to are potentially, probably causing a lot of the autoimmune issues. So chronic degenerative disease and autoimmune disease, these disorders occur decades before you ever get symptoms, okay? This Melissa Arbuckle, she's an interesting lady. She did a study on this, and she went to the VA, and the VA has millions and millions of blood samples that are frozen, and she took blood samples. She looked at veterans who developed autoimmune lupus, okay? And then she went back and looked at their blood samples like 5-6 years before. And this is back in, so she went back into the 70s when they started freezing blood. And here's what she found. She found that they had autoimmune markers in their blood long before they were ever diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, okay? So here's what she found. She found this period where you had 5 years, autoimmune markers. She looked at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 autoimmune markers, okay? And they all started going up. But in this area here, these 5 years, person felt fine. They didn't know they had an autoimmune problem. They felt great, okay? Diagnosis is here. So once these markers get to a certain level, you can feel good for a long time, and that autoimmune disease can keep going up and up and up in your body. She's the first one to figure this out, okay? And so...
can you reverse that?
Yes, you can. And we'll talk about that, okay? But we'll go through some of the steps. You can, okay? So this is view 3, okay? Autoimmunity happens when our gut becomes inflamed and leaks underdigested food, bacteria, yeast, and viruses into the blood. This is called leaky gut syndrome and creates an autoimmune response in the body. And all of these things are interconnected. For example, lack of nutrients can contribute to leaky gut. Eating toxic foods can contribute to leaky gut. So they're all interconnected. So leaky gut happens when the cellular lining in your gut just starts coming undone, and toxicity starts leaking into your blood that has no business being there. And so here's what happens. You leaky gut, food intolerances. Food intolerance create immune abnormalities, eventually create an autoimmune issue. So what causes leaky gut? Okay, pharmaceuticals. Number 1, antibiotics, cortisone, NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like aspirin, Tylenol. They cause leaky gut. So I encourage people not to take this stuff if they can avoid it. Okay, common food intolerances such as gluten, wheat, dairy, and peanuts can cause leaky gut. A lot of people have gluten intolerances, dairy intolerances. I find them all the time in practice, all the time. So if you have intolerances, you gotta get rid of it out of your diet. I have a dairy intolerance, okay? I just do terrible with when I drink milk, okay? I can do heavy whipping cream, cannot do milk, I do terrible with it. I don't drink it. I don't have it. It's not not even in our house, okay? We have heavy whipping cream. That's okay for coffee, but that's just fat. But we don't do any dairy at our house. So how do food intolerance happen? Well, genetics. You can inherit, some of these food intolerances, but hybridization, genetic modification, and processing of foods creates proteins our bodies don't recognize. I'll tell you what all of this is here in just a minute. There's up there for a reason. So eating the same foods over and over can lead to the body becoming sensitized to foods. And then that develops, causes inflammation, causes leaky gut. These are rats that were fed rat chow that had been grown in fields that was laced with Roundup. Okay, so they were fed rat chow that had a lot of glyphosate in it, and they started developing tumors over time. And this is an interesting study because they were saying if you look at the time it takes for a rat to grow a tumor like this, about 7 months. But if you look at the lifespan of rats and people, that breast tumors grow in women when they're exposed to certain things in about relatively the same amount of time that they grow in rats. So that's what that article was all about. So how do you know if you have leaky gut or you're intolerant to wheat? Well, the best test I know is a wheat Zoomer test. Great test. It will tell you in depth whether you have leaky gut and what part of the wheat you're intolerant to, because it's not always gliadin. It can be the starch, it can be the wheat germ oil, it can be anything, okay? Any part of the wheat. So view number 4, and we're going to kind of fly through this really quick. Autoimmunity develops when a tissue gets weak and just starts spilling its protein and genetic material into the blood. And what happens then, and there's this whole, here's some of the causes of that: trauma, infection, radiation, dehydration, vaccines, nutritional deficiencies. All of these things could cause that. And so here's how vaccines cause autoimmune disease. I might get kicked off of Facebook for saying that. So I won't get into this. If you want to look at that, you can get the slides. So eventually, the immune system will attack an organ. So let's say that you have a liver that's really unhealthy, that's fatty. It'll start leaking liver tissue into the blood, or this tissue starts dying, and some of that ends up in the blood, and it shouldn't be there. So the body reacts to it, and it'll trace it back to the liver and start attacking the liver. Okay. So what makes the liver unhealthy, by the way?
You can eat breads and starches.
Yeah, sugar. Yeah, that's one thing. That's where you would have got the right answer. You just missed you missed the question. Okay. So sequence. This is a sequence of the autoimmune process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because I don't want to keep you too late. But all diseases and health issues, if you let it go long enough, will eventually become autoimmune. It doesn't matter. All will become autoimmune because it weakens your tissue. Tissue starts sloughing off. And yes, Terry.
Is that butterfly effect that you were?
Yeah, that's the butterfly rash. That's one version of it.
Yeah, I was wondering about
for
that.
lupus, right?
You bet.
Okay, how is autoimmunity healed? Okay, number 1 is you got to detoxify the body. So you got to eat things that detoxify. There's several ways you can do that. What's a food that's very powerfully detoxifying in the body? Anybody?
Broccoli.
Yeah, good job. Cruciferous vegetables. Very powerful for
cabbage.
detoxifying. Yeah, cabbage,
Cauliflower,
broccoli,
Brussels sprouts,
kale,
broccoli.
yeah, collard greens. Very powerful for detoxifying. And by the way, I eat cruciferous vegetables almost every day. There's certain foods I eat every day. That's one of them. Okay. So here's another one. Determine the weak organ and give it the nutrients it needs to heal. So that involves giving it some protomorphogens, which I'm not going to talk about tonight because it's going to take too long. But there's a way that we can figure that out and do that here in the office. So begin using protomorphogen therapy. Test for food intolerance, leaky gut, and correct. Very, very important. Eliminate stealth pathogens. So this is all about protomorphogens. These are the PMGs from standard process. And these, whenever you see a PMG behind a nutrient in my office, that means that that nutrient is basically for an autoimmune issue of that particular organ. Okay? So PMGs are very, very powerful for healing. Okay? Very, very powerful. So protomorphogens were really founded by Royal Lee, who founded Standard Process, and he published the theory of protomorphology in 1947. I won't get into a lot of this. And here's how PMGs function as a decoy. Okay, so the body attacks the PMG rather than the organ. Okay, so they have a lot of nutrition in them. I won't get into that so much, but so they're and this is their safety. They're very, very safe. And where do we start? So let's say you have an autoimmune issue. Where do you start? Very thorough case history. Really, really important. I cannot do a case history in 5 minutes. Okay, I can't do it in a 10-minute office visit. Actually, you got to sit down and just talk to somebody and listen to them and find out what is going on. You know, when was the last time you felt good? You know, really important. Symptoms are not the disease, but they're great clues to the cause of the disease. So look at all review of past laboratory testing, thorough diet analysis, and then you usually need specific lab tests to determine what might be going on based on the case history and the patient's symptoms. So here's some tests that are really, really good. The neural zoomer and a wheat zoomer from Vibrant America, powerful tests for determining autoimmune issues. Cyrex Labs has an autoimmune reactivity screen. In fact, one of the articles that I went over was written by the guy who developed all the tests for Cyrex. They have a test that you can just do. It's a blood test. It'll tell you if you have an autoimmune disease and where it is. It tests like 23 of them. Wow. So you can find out, are you developing an autoimmune disease even if you don't have any symptoms? Organic acid testing is a urine test, very powerful test to show how well can your body detoxify? Is it detoxifying? You know, what's going on with your gut bacteria? Organic acid testing tells you a lot of that. Mold testing. Sometimes mold is the issue in autoimmune disease, and that needs to be tested. So these tests can reveal leaky blood-brain barrier, among other brain dysfunctions, low nutrient levels, yeast, mold issues, mitochondrial issues, and inability to detoxify properly. These are not normal blood tests. You know, your standard blood tests give you a lot of information, but they don't tell you what this does. These are very specific tests that I would use to look at autoimmune issues. So the other thing is, and the last thing, and then I'm going to let you go, is chiropractic, getting your nervous system functioning properly. You know, your nervous system controls everything, is also a piece of the autoimmune process. So when somebody comes to me and they may have autoimmunity, or they probably do, I say, are you getting adjusted? If they're seeing a chiropractor, great. You know, that piece is taken care of. But you remember that your nervous system controls everything in your body. If your nervous system is not intact, your body can't work right. And so in a few weeks, we're having our Patient Appreciation Day where we're going to be doing preventative health screenings at our expense. So most of you know somebody who's sick and unhealthy, and just have them call the office, and we will be glad to talk to them about their diet, do a preventative health screening, and see if there's anything that we can do to help that patient, to help that individual. So it's a few minutes after 7. I'll let you go. Anybody have any questions?
How much is that Cyrex autoimmune reactivity screen?
I think it's right around like $950, somewhere around there. You know, I think
Okay.
that's about what it is.
Okay.
Yes,
How
Terry.
often does mold testing come out positive as being a autoimmune issue?
I would say maybe
10% of the time?
Oh, it's higher than that.
Is it?
Yeah, it's higher than 10%.
There's a lot
It's
of
not the
mold
first.
out there.
It's not the
Yeah.
first test I would do. You know, it's only. In fact, only if they were really exposed to mold for a period of time would I do that test. I've done it, and it's come up positive. But I don't do it. That wouldn't be my first test that I would do by a long shot.
Is the black mold the main mold that causes?
There's a whole bunch of them, Terry.
There's a whole bunch of
A whole
it.
slew of
Or
them.
different kinds.
Whole slew.
A whole slew of them.
Would
yeah.
you have that if you don't have it in your home environment? Is there,
Would you have mold?
Mold.
yeah, mold issues?
You shouldn't.
Okay.
You know. I mean,
Because
I
I
don't.
work from home, so it would be in my home, and I'm
But it
allergic
could be
to
in the
mold.
grass too.
I would
and-
know that.
Yeah, you probably would. I mean, I don't think I have mold. You know, in our house, I live in a house, and I don't think.
I'm
you know,
really allergic to molds and
Right.
pollens and ragweed and dust, and I'm usually a good sensor for people when I've walked into people's houses.
Yeah.
So I have a friend that had that in her house.
Yeah. So you know, if you're exposed to it, that's you've had a lot of water damage, and the people in California need to think about that now. Yeah,
Yeah.
Don.
What's the excess vitamin D consequence?
Well, it can become toxic to your body, and then your liver has to get rid of it over time. So you don't want to take anything in excess. Vitamin A can be toxic, and you just don't want to take anything in excess. So, the highest level, the upper level of vitamin D is right around 100. And so you don't want to go above that. And and I've seen people pretty high above that. And so I just tell them, you need to back off, stop taking it, Now, most of the people I have need to take more vitamin D. A lot of people, there are some people out there that have too much. Anybody else?
Is that because of vitamin A and vitamin D are fat soluble and the body stores fat soluble vitamins? You don't hear about the C and the B being that much of a autoimmune issue.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And so your
It's A
your
and
body
D you gotta
tends to
worry about.
store vitamin
And that's
D
where
and
the
A
liver
in fat
comes in.
cells. Yeah, it's fat soluble. Right.
And the talk in 2 weeks is fibromyalgia.
Fibromyalgia. So in 2 weeks, we're doing fibromyalgia. You want to learn about that? We'll do a talk then. Anyway, I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much for coming tonight.